you'll see it's totally appropriate. You can use the most automated thing you can imagine and you'll be fine, okay? But it's kind of like recognizing, all right, what am I dealing with here? What kind of property am I dealing with? And based on that information, determining how in-depth I need to get, right? With the comps and figuring things out. The other thing is, what kind of seller are you dealing with, right? Some sellers they're just gonna say, hey, I hired you to tell me how much this thing's worth, and I expect you to do that, and I'm not gonna, if you tell me it's worth $500,000, wonderful, let's go, right? Other sellers are going to need you to prove to them what you think it's worth, okay? I think about engineers. If you deal with any engineers, they want to see the data, they want you to show them how you adjusted the values and blah, 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 and all that stuff, okay? So you kind of have to know who you're dealing with. And I would also say, if you walk in and you're in relative agreement, you're basically in agreement, everybody's good with what we're coming up with price-wise, shut up and move on, right? Because this is where you can get, this will be the cause for your arguments with your sellers, okay? Pricing is what gets people fired up. So if you walk in and everybody's good and you like the number that they like, and roll, let's go, right? Let's move on. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But others, you're gonna have to get into it with them. So make sure you put your email on there, and I'll send you a document that I've created, okay? So I did appraisals in 2002 through 2005. So I kind of got into real estate by doing appraisals. That's how I started. So I know how most appraisers think to some degree, and I always say, I feel like if you can blend the way realtors think with the way appraisers think, you can really get a good value, okay? They both have blind spots, okay? So appraisers, they come into a house, they say, it's a 4-bedroom home, so I'm just gonna compare it against these other 4-bedroom homes. And you as an agent, you know certain 4-bedroom homes, like the bedrooms are tiny, or one of them's tiny, and they're barely getting that 4th one. And so how does that affect things? You know that it affects things because you walk in and show a property, and what does your buyer say? These bedrooms are tiny. So not all 4 bedrooms are created equal, right? And agents, I think, pick that up easier than appraisers. Appraisers are like, it's 4 beds, it's 4 beds, it's 4 beds, it's 4 beds, we're just gonna go with that. Does that make sense? So, I think I want to show you kind of how to blend the two perspectives, because I think you'll come out a lot better that way. Okay? All right. My brother created this, so I'm looking at it going, all right, let's see what we think. Okay, so price versus pricing strategy. Price. This home is worth $250,000. I know. All right. Pricing strategy. Here's why $250,000 is a great list price, right? The market knows. So you have to get used to. You're not Nostradamus. You don't want to pigeonhole. Like when you're in a conversation with the seller and you're talking about pricing, okay? You don't want to die on this hill, okay? You want to set their expectations that we may need to be a little bit flexible, particularly in certain price ranges, right? Some price ranges, some locations aren't flying off the shelf. Like the house I was dealing with this morning that we got 9 offers on. 9 offers, right? So that's a little different discussion, but you want to talk in terms of how the market reacts or absorbs or accepts the product that you're putting on the market. Does that make sense? So the market will like your white raised panel cabinetry. I don't like them. I mean, I do, but I'm not going to say I love your white, raised panel. The market's going to love those, or the market is not going to. They're not going to respond very well to your green countertops, right? So we're talking in terms of how the market is the one making all the decisions and not me. That way I'm not pigeonholing myself and dying on a hill I don't need to die on, okay? That way whenever it doesn't go as well, or if it doesn't go as well, you can go back to them and say, remember how we talked about, you know, we were gonna pay attention to the market, we're gonna price it here, but we're gonna pay attention to the market, and after XYZ weeks on the market or whatever it is, we were gonna have this discussion. So now we're having this discussion, the market's not responded, I think we need to reduce by $9,000, $10,000, okay? Guys, this is foreign territory for a lot of people right now because nobody's reducing prices hardly. It's not happening very often, but when it happens, when we get into a market where you will have to do this, this will become your job. So a listing agent's job in a slow market is to have a weekly conversation about the price. Lots of fun. I'm telling you. 2008, 9, 10, and into 11, if you took a listing, you signed up to have a weekly conversation about the price and why the house wasn't selling. Now I hope we don't get to that point, but you gotta know that at some point, things will slow a bit and you will have to have a really skilled conversation. The better you are at having these conversations with your seller, the more sellers you're gonna be able to retain, the more sellers you're gonna make happy, the more sellers you're gonna get sold, that stuff, right? That's hugely important, okay? All right, so think about the market is telling us. The market is telling us, not me, not I, not Mr. Professional. I know how to interpret the market, so therefore the market is telling the seller XYZ, okay? All right, so tools for pricing your listing. Flex MLS, the MLS is the greatest source of data that we have at our disposal. It's the best source of data that we have. I would put that way up there. That's way ahead of these other things, okay? RPR, don't know much about it, not gonna talk about it. Kelly, that's an interesting thought, and that is cool. We're getting to a point now, you know, with Kelly where you've got the snaps. That's a very quick barometer of things. If you're out in the field and you need to pull some data, not a bad deal. PVA is good for a lot of things, is not so good for other things, okay? Visual assessment, obviously, very, very important, okay? The more you know areas, the better you're gonna be able to advise people, right? The more you've driven around, the more homes you've seen, the more homes you've shown, the better you're gonna get at pricing on the fly. So what I wanna do is I wanna teach you how to do this really well so that you can move beyond it and be able to do this faster, right? Because at first, like if you really take your time and get to know some things, it's gonna take some time to do these well, but the more you do, the more comfortable you'll get and more confident you'll get, right? Most of it's about confidence anyway. How did you say what you said to the seller, right? Where they take you seriously and they look at you as a professional, okay? So the more you know, the more knowledge you have of streets and dividing lines and where the railroad tracks are and where the nuclear waste dump is and where the highway goes through my backyard and all those things. Those are hugely important things, right? That really affect value, and they're not changeable. You can't change the fact that the highway goes through your backyard. So what do we do about that? We gotta make an adjustment. We gotta figure out how much is this gonna affect us, right? So anyway, all right. Any questions so far? Anything? No? Okay. So, I think he stole my sheet. This is good. Good job, my bro. Good job. All right, so finding your comps. All right? The number one thing in real estate is location. I realize it is a cliche, but it is the number one thing far and away that controls everything, okay? The closer you can get to your location with your comps, the better. And anybody who says differently doesn't know what they're talking about, okay? So, now, that doesn't mean that you can always find perfect comps right near your subject. You can't. And so that's where you have to take some liberties and learn how to move beyond that a little bit. But for the most part, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were having an issue with a deal, and the listing agent had priced this property like way off, and the buyer's agent made the offer because it's such a hot market, and they lost so many, they didn't really even look at the comps, they just gave them full price. Well, guess what? The appraisal came way low. And the listing agent was mad because the appraiser, this is so funny, you'll laugh, I hope you'll laugh, because the appraiser only used comps right in the subject neighborhood. You're not laughing. Why aren't you laughing? That's funny, right? And what he said is true. If I don't need to go outside the neighborhood, I'm not going outside the neighborhood. If I've got enough data in the neighborhood, why would I go outside the neighborhood? Okay? Now, if you don't have enough data in the neighborhood, that's when you have to go outside the neighborhood to get your comps, right? Make sense? So this listing agent was just beside herself because, yeah, the appraiser stayed in the neighborhood. How dumb is that? Okay, so, all right, some things to think about. Watch for major boundaries. This is really important. So if they're on a busy road, that affects the value, right? If you're on the railroad tracks or close to the railroad tracks, that affects the value. If you're in Anchorage, you're close to the railroad tracks, and those are still expensive homes. So it's not the end of the world for some areas, but Anchorage is one of those weird places where they don't really care. They don't seem to care much. But I will say you will find that the houses that are closer to the railroad tracks are going to suffer a little bit in value. Okay? Make sense? The beautiful thing about this is when you're doing your CMA, if you're pulling up the map view, if you don't know the area well, you're going to be able to see railroad tracks. You're going to recognize, oh, that's the Watterson. And it's in my subject's backyard, right? So you're going to notice these things, okay? So pay attention to the maps if you don't know the area as well. I'm trying to think what else would be a negative. Golf course could be a positive or a negative. Kind of depends on where you sit on the golf course, right? If you're in a landing area, if you're showing the house and there's a big net in the backyard, like, might want to talk about that, right? So, yeah, and people do. They steer clear of that stuff. They're not going to buy it, so it's going to shrink your market. Trying to think what else. Airport proximity or planes flying over left and right. What else do you think? You think of anything else that's a nuisance? Construction going on. Yep. What else? Sewer treatment plant could be an issue. Yep. What else? Power lines. Yeah, big power lines going. Yeah, the big dogs.
Or the big hole in the yard.
Right. What about a 70-unit apartment complex next door?
Well, I was gonna say that was kind of like construction there.
Mm-hmm. But that's just a lot of people, and people don't. The market does not respond well to property, to homes located in close proximity to large apartments. Now, you've got exceptions to that. You've got neighborhoods where that's sort of expected. So that doesn't seem to affect it as much. But some of the stuff being built, I mean, there's so many large apartment complexes being built that, some people are going to protest against moving into that scenario. What else? Anything you can think of? Nuisances?
Flooding, low-lying road.
Okay. Like if there's noticeable standing water in places, maybe on the property, or
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see here. Okay, different sides of the street could create different conditions. Yep, for sure. So Zorn Avenue on is that St. Leonard? I think is the street or the church and school there. That side sells for a very, very reasonable price for the zip code. The other side of Zorn Avenue is Mockingbird Valley. It's the highest priced real estate you can find, pretty much, right? They're divided by Zorn Avenue. Don't know why, don't really care, just saying, it's just true whenever you're going in there. So just know your boundaries, like when you're looking at different sides of a street, okay? Sometimes you will need a full zip code search. Sometimes you'll need a full county search. Sometimes you'll need to go 5 miles away, right? We're talking about density, okay? So how dense is the area that you're looking? How much does it turn over? okay? If it's a rural area, you're gonna have to go further out more than likely. Now, the rule is still get as close as you can to the subject, but it's perfectly acceptable to have to search the entire county when you've got a property on 25 acres, okay? So it's fine, right? Or stay in the zip code if you can. I mean, you want it to be the smallest circle possible, but you gotta get comps. Make sense? All right. Search auction. Wow. I didn't search auction, but that's cool. I would search active, pending, and closed, depending on how dense the area is. I would search those three categories for sure, but depending on how dense the area is how far back I would go. I hope I don't have to go back a whole year to get good comps. If I can stay within 6 months, I'm gonna stay within 6 months. If I can go down to like a third of a mile instead of a half a mile, I'll do that and maybe stay at 6 months, okay, to get really super close to the property, that sort of thing, okay?
You like to do active ones?
Mm-hmm.
To look at that?
Yep. Depending on the market you're in, you're gonna need to look at actives. I think your market, you're always, well, and really what we should have on there is active under contract, pending, and closed, okay?
That's probably what that AUC is, right?
I don't know what AUC, oh, active under contract, thank you, it looks like auction to me, I don't know why I'm thinking of auction, that's stupid, okay, yeah, see, good job, Joe. So, but he didn't have actives on there, which I would, you need actives on there for sure. They even started adding actives into appraisals because the underwriters wanna know, they don't wanna just know what's happened in the past, right? So think about the data that you collect. An appraiser usually uses closed sales. That means that stuff's already happened, right? So they're looking backward to make a determination of value. The underwriters eventually said, no, you know what? So, especially in a declining market, okay? So when a market is declining, what do they wanna know? They wanna know what stuff's selling for. What is on the market currently, right? Does it make sense? So, because you could get some, when the market shifts a little bit more, you'll start to see it. The historical data, the closed sales will show, hey, it's worth 300,000. But then you pull up the actives and you're going, man, the median price in the neighborhood is at about 280 or something. Okay? So that can be super problematic if you don't think in those terms, because you're gonna be advising a seller, and the hard part is when you know the market's shifting a little bit and you can't prove it with closed data, you gotta prove it with something. Because you can't just say, hey, in my gut, I already know, I just know, Mr. Seller, I know it's getting slower, we need to price it at this point. Can't do, they're not gonna believe you, right? So I gotta show them something that gives them an idea of what's actually happening. So I can show them the actives, and I can show them that those prices are down, and so I think we're gonna need to be down as well from what these closed. You can spin it with, the good news is the appraisal ought to be fine, because they're gonna be using closed sales, right? We should not have any issues there. Okay. Yo.
Okay, so in the example you gave earlier, you said that the appraisal used comps outside or in the neighborhood, not outside. So which one is better? To use outside the neighborhood or
Inside.
within?
Inside.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
What the listing agent wanted the appraiser to do was to ignore everything inside the neighborhood and just go outside to get comps, which
That doesn't make sense.
that ain't gonna happen, right? When location is the most important thing, the closer the better, okay? If you can get it. All right, so search, okay, we're gonna use the polygon,
When you make the decision to leave the neighborhood and go to, like, because obviously you said start out at 6 months, so if you're in that neighborhood and not much is sold in the 6 months, do you go back a year or do you?
I'd rather go
stay
back,
yourself
that's a good question. I'd rather go back further in time
than leave the
to
neighborhood?
stay hyper local than to get outside the neighborhood. I'd rather go back a year. The chances are you're gonna find, so let's say you've got 2 really good comps in the neighborhood, right, that have closed, and maybe 1 active and maybe a pending. That's almost enough, if they're really good, if they're really if they're very similar to what you've got, what your subject looks like, that's almost enough data to do something with it. You don't really need much more than that. But if you really want to be certain, maybe you go outside the neighborhood, just to an adjoining neighborhood, and pick up an active in another closed sale or something, and just say, hey, and just see what the price differences are. Is that affecting it downward? Is it affecting it upward? What's it doing? And then you can talk to your seller about that and say, here's where I'm coming from. But just know that the appraiser, if they got to go outside the neighborhood, they're going to be doing that too. And they may go outside the neighborhood before going further back in time, because the underwriters tend to they like closer closed sale in terms of date range. Yeah, they want to know what's happened recently. Okay, so today we're gonna use the polygon drawing tool. We can use a zip code search, and you can do a neighborhood search. On this stuff, I think it's great to use a neighborhood search. If my rule on a neighborhood search is there a sign out front of the neighborhood that tells you what the neighborhood is, right? Because there's a bunch of old neighborhoods in Louisville where there's not a sign. No one's gonna tell you you're in Excellent Place. That's where I used to live, Excellent Place. There's no sign that says that. So I'm not sure how beneficial it would be for me comping to my house to just search Excellent Place, right? For one, I gotta trust that the agents, and you can't, actually knew that it was an excellent place, okay? So now if it's Lake Forest, that's a different issue, because Lake Forest is so diverse in the value spectrum that I don't think you can just go in and say Lake Forest. But I'll give you a really good example. My favorite example is Springview. You guys know Springview? It's kind of in J-Town. I think it was a Dominion neighborhood, Dominion Homes neighborhood. So the floor plans, the home, you've got one in there. Floor plans, quality of construction, all that stuff is relatively similar. And you can type in Springview and you'll always have good amount of data. Okay, you don't need to use a polygon or a zip code or radius search or any of that. You can just literally focus on Springview. Does that make sense? Yay? No? Okay. All right. What else here? Select comps with similar style, size, and updates. So style could be a ranch, a two-story, a bi-level, a tri-level. Okay? This is it's really important to stay within the style. Okay? That's probably that's the first thing I'm looking for. That's the first thing I want whenever I'm looking at comps. Okay? So if I've got a ranch, if you're comparing a two-story to a ranch or vice versa, you don't have good data. You don't have a good amount of data. You need to go find some ranches. Okay, because it really makes a big difference. Bi-levels and tri-levels and quad levels and all that 1.5 stories. Like if you have, let's say you've got, the only time you might deviate, like if you've got a ranch and you're in a neighborhood where there's not a lot of ranches, but maybe there's some 1.5 stories and they've got first floor masters, then you can somewhat use those. Okay, it's not ideal, but you can. The first floor master thing is hugely important. You want to have like kind there. Does that make sense? Because people will just not even look at stuff that doesn't have a first floor master. So it does affect the market quite a bit. All right, size is important. So I always go with above grade square footage is where I start. Okay, so I'm looking at style, and then I'm looking at above grade square footage, and of course bedrooms. If I can. There's times where, you really want to stay, obviously if it's a 3-bedroom, you want to compare it against a 3-bedroom. If it's a 4-bedroom, you want to compare it against a 4-bedroom. But there are times when I think that's less important. If you're in an older neighborhood, like I think of St. Matthews, there are 4-bedroom Cape Cods in St. Matthews that are tiny, little cracker boxes, okay? I don't think that matters. Like if I've got a nice 3-bedroom versus that 4-bedroom that's all crushed in there, I'm not gonna worry about it being 3 versus 4. Does that make sense? If I'm in Owl Creek though, and I've got a 3-bedroom versus a 4-bedroom, that's a different ballgame, because Owl Creek, those 4-bedrooms were built that way. In St. Matthews, those were built as glorified 2-bedrooms that somebody's gone in and added a wall, and now you've got 4 bedrooms. It doesn't work well. Okay, so you definitely have to pay attention to bedrooms. You want to be the same, but you can move around a little bit if it's, the way I look at it is, a 4-bedroom should not be 1,600 square feet or less above grade. And there's plenty of those in St. Matthews, right? Okay, that's what I'm saying. All right, so size, so above grade square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, basement. Basement's a big ticket item. So if your property does not have a basement, you really want something that doesn't have a basement if you can find it. It's very important. But if you can't, you can't, and you're just gonna have to make an adjustment, and it's gonna be pretty substantial. And then you're gonna look at updates, so you're gonna look at pictures, right? You're gonna look and see, what does it look like? How updated does it look? Does it look like something the market would absorb well, quickly? Do they like it? Is it the stuff on HGTV, right? Is it, not that I ever even mention that TV station with any joy, but is it stuff that's selling, right? People like it generally. Okay, makes sense? And that's gonna be super, like, you get into like trying to figure out making an adjustment for updates, you really have to just trust your gut to some degree, and make a decision on what you think the market is gonna do. If you have a dated grandma house, as I call it, right? And you've got comps that are all updated, you're gonna have to make some decisions on how to price that, okay? And it's gonna have to be discounted, but how much and why? And not necessarily based on the cost to remodel. We know it'll be less than that. Homes will sell, you're not gonna get that full, now they might end up getting the full amount that they put into it, but when you're pricing something that's a little bit dated or whatever, they're still gonna sell for, in an established area that people wanna be in, it's still gonna sell for a little more than probably it should, if that makes sense, based on what you gotta do to it. All right, cool. Anything else? Any questions about that?
Yeah, I have one question on
Uh-huh.
updates. In your experience, when you have a house that is, the interior looks great.
Yeah.
But the AC is 20 years old,
Oh, yeah.
the roof is older, so, does it just depend on the people that are buying the house and what's important to them?
It kind of does. What I see on that is people get all excited because cosmetically it looks gorgeous, and then they get the inspection because they didn't pay attention to the disclosure, and maybe their agent didn't say, hey, look, this thing's really nice on the inside, it's really beautiful, but I do need you to know you've got some big ticket items probably in the first 5 years, right? So roof, HVAC, windows, maybe something where you're gonna be spending a bunch of money. And if they're not educating them that way, then they're liable to see the actual guts of the property and get out. So determining what the value is, I just look at like the mechanicals as like a little bit of a piece of the puzzle, but I can't really determine. I'm not gonna say, if you've got the roof and the HVAC that are updated that you're gonna get, it's gonna cost you every bit of $16,000, $20,000 probably for those two things. I'm not gonna say you're gonna get that much more, you're probably not. So it's kind of determining.
What's the appraiser's perspective on that versus the house that's been updated?
They note it, but I don't think they.
So.
They'll note it, and they'll say something like, okay, great. I mean, I just had a bunch of investment properties appraised the other day, and I'm talking to the appraiser the whole day. I mean, I was with this guy for 6 hours. So I'm talking to him, I'm picking his brain and asking him these things, and I could tell, and I would even say, I told him, hey, we had to rebuild this garage. I mean, does he really care about that? I sounded like a stupid seller, seriously, I sounded like a seller that you walk into and they start bragging about everything that they did, because that's just human nature, we like to brag about it. He noted it, he was very nice, he's like, no, I need to know that, I'm glad you said that. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It either has a garage or it doesn't, right? I don't think it's, it might be if you've got updated mechanicals and everything else is beautiful and the value is, let's say it's got multiple offers and the value's not really there based on comps, maybe they're gonna give you the benefit of the doubt a little bit more because you got the whole package, so to speak, right? But
I can tell you that we just had a house appraised, it was a refinance, so they could cash out so my client could buy, but the house was a hoarding, like literally a
Yeah.
hoarder's house, and it appraised for fair market value for that.
Oh,
So I don't think they didn't care that it was
yeah.
sticky and filthy and
Right,
gross.
right.
But you're,
That's right.
Yeah, 'cause this,
you're saying that.
But it's also, real quick, every appraiser is different.
Yes.
That's
Okay,
the
touche.
challenge, you know, and like, it's an opinion of value. Like an appraisal is an opinion of value. So we all know about opinions and other things. Everybody's got one, right? So you just have to keep that in mind. But you're right. I mean, some of them are going to walk through and they're going to see a certain amount of either deferred maintenance or like filth or whatever, and they're just going to be like, you know what? They're going to put, if they put this on the market, they're going to clean that up. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And others are going to be like, man, I have to appraise this thing as is, where is, and the way it sits today is the way that I have to appraise it.
So can you talk a little bit about providing comps for the appraiser? For example.
Should you or shouldn't you or what?
Well, yes, and how to go about that if you do?
Yeah, I would be. They kind of think they're smart. A lot of them. These appraisers. Like they kind of think, like they don't need your help. But I also have heard some of them say, you know what? I really appreciate when the agent, you know. Some of them will say even shows up at the appraisal, which I don't know that I would do that necessarily. I mean, if you've got a big deal and you know that it's intricate and you have a very strong opinion and you had to go get certain data that you really think the appraiser in their everyday appraising, they're not going to go get this particular stuff, I absolutely would show up and say, hey, you know, I just wanted to provide you with some of the research I did because this is a big listing, and I'm using a big listing because lack of a better example. And here's some things that, you know, I'm not sure would turn up in just everyday kind of research. I wanted to provide that for you, and I put the comps in here that I used. And the way I would put it, Kendall, is I'm providing you with the comps that I used when I priced the property. Just to help you.
And then,
And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think you want to go into much more than that. I do think every time you get multiple offers, if you're a listing agent and that appraiser doesn't know that, you're not doing your job. They need to know that. And it doesn't always make the end-all be-all difference, but when they call or they schedule it through showing time and you think, oh, I don't have to really talk to them because they're just going to let themselves in, no, call them or email them and say, hey, you know, we had 4 offers. We had one at, you know, even higher than this, but this one's better terms. I mean, go into that with them, and I think it should bolster the benefit of the doubt, which is what you need right now. I mean, really, what we need right now is kind of a benefit of the doubt boost in a lot of cases. Does that help?
yeah.
Or what else are you asking?
Well, I'm just curious. I'm thinking of an example that I had where I was representing the buyer,
Mhm.
so that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But the appraiser used comps that were in a neighborhood, and the property was on 44 acres. And so what we ended up doing
Was
is.
it a neighborhood of 44-acre homes?
Of course not. So what we ended up doing is both buyer and seller agreed, and lender agreed to throw that one out, and I think the seller, I don't remember who, one of our parties, I think the seller paid for a new one.
Okay.
Because that guy he refused to change anything.
Yeah, right.
And so I kind of want to know, representing either side,
Mm-hmm.
how you might, I know this isn't really a CMA, but it kind of goes to
Yeah,
it,
no, it's
right?
cool. Yeah, whatever.
So how would you support your client, like, it was worth way more than what he had, obviously.
Right.
So it's just,
Well, I think that's part of it is, can I get a hold of the appraisal so that I can see that it's truly an error and really a bad appraisal, right?
right,
Because if it is, then it's not doing my buyer any good, even though I'm representing the buyer, right? So in a way, this is a struggle, because I mean, the appraisal comes in low. Well, if you're representing the buyer, why are you fighting for the seller? But if it's a truly bad
it
report,
was truly bad.
then that doesn't do anybody any good. And what you did is perfectly fine. I mean, having everybody come together and say, hey, this is garbage. Let's redo this. And I leave it up. I mean, on a buyer, when I'm representing the buyer, I talk to the buyer and say, hey, look, we're short sometimes, a lot of the time, unfortunately, it's like, $4,000. It's not a ton of money, but it affects the deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go to them and I say, hey, look, we're short $4,000. I can get a copy of the appraisal and I can work on attempting to get that appraiser to raise that value, but I need to know from your perspective, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, is that what you want me to do? Or do you want me to go to the seller and say, hey, look, we're not buying it for more than it appraised for, we're gonna buy it for that amount, or we're out. How do you want me to proceed? Because you kinda wanna know, I mean, they might say, no, because it's 100% financing or something, right? So they're
Right.
going, no, I need you to fight for me, I want you to get the 4,000. We need that. Okay, well then I'll do my best. Does that make sense?
It does. So the only other lingering question is can the buyer agent do anything towards, is it okay for them to talk to provide their own stuff to the list agent and appraiser?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. For some reason, and I think Harry said this recently, people think that agents can't talk to the appraiser. That's not true. You can talk to the appraiser. For one, they're probably gonna have to go through an agent to get access to the property anyway, and you can totally talk to it.
Okay.
The
think that was an allowed.
lenders, it's a little bit more tricky. It depends on what lender, it depends on what the loan type is and all that jazz. So, I definitely think it's appropriate to send your comps and to talk to the appraiser, let them know about the multiple offers. Marshall?
Can I make a question, when you are first going to a buyer, talking to a seller about listing their home,
Mhm.
do you try to get an idea of what they are looking for, what they wanna sell their house
Mhm.
for prior, so that you can, at least try to justify what they're doing, or at least be able to support your opinion of why it shouldn't be priced at
Yeah.
a certain amount?
Yeah, I do. I'm not saying I've done that really well a lot. Sometimes I won't do that, but I do think it's smart to kind of know what their temperature is, because
Yeah.
why are you even going out there if you're so far apart and it's not going to work? Right? So I would want to know, just so that I know where they stand. That doesn't at all affect how I'm going to come down on it, because I know, and I've had too many listings not sell in my lifetime to know that I'm signing up for a weekly conversation with a seller who doesn't want to drop their price, and that's the thing that they need to do. And I don't want to have that weekly conversation. I don't have time. Why do we have time for that, right? And I'm not saying that there aren't instances where if you're doing a farm property or something like that is just really
Yeah, that's,
different,
yeah.
then yeah, the values are going to be a lot less certain. So I'm going to give those a lot more benefit of the doubt, and just tell them, hey, you know what? I'm doing these value assessments all the time, and if somebody, and I've literally said this, I've said this to many sellers, if somebody walks into your house and says they know exactly what it's worth, you should throw them out on the street, because they don't know, because this isn't a cookie cutter product. It could be this, it could be that. We're gonna make sure that we put it in the right value segment so that it sells, right? So my job is now to be within whatever, it depends on the price point, but might be to be within 25,000 of kind of where you think it's gonna hit. That might be perfectly acceptable and fine, knowing that you're gonna be talking to them about dropping it if it doesn't sell, right? Does that make sense?
Well, in cases like that, I like to get a price reduction.
You can do that, yeah. I mean,
because-
more power to you, yeah. You get a price reduction when you sign the listing,
When
yeah.
I
When
sign
you're
the
saying, hey,
listing.
we're gonna price it at $550, but, in a month or whatever, we're gonna be at $525. That's great.
Can you add language in your listing contracts or in like an addendum or whatever that's basically like, you're gonna accept what the appraisal says and we're not like, if it's a couple $1,000s off, you agree to lower it to the buyer, or is that not even worth it?
It's hard to you don't know what it's gonna come in at, you know what I mean?
And doesn't that also?
So, you could put something, as long as you're specific, as long as you're like, hey, if the appraisal comes in within, 2,500 of X,
Mhm.
we're moving on. You could, yeah, I think you could.
I think that depends on.
But I think you wanna be careful and you wanna make sure it's a net amount, like you wanna think
Sure,
about,
I
they're
think it
gonna
would
have.
not be
pro-
super attractive to sellers, but still curious if there's a way to have that conversation and kind of codify it at the beginning.
I think but I also think like, when it happens and it comes in low, some sellers they're just bullheaded, you're not getting
Mhm.
anywhere. But a lot of them, even if they seem kind of bullheaded, they're kind of like, I mean, it's a stark thing, like, okay, you're either gonna play ball here, maybe this buyer's gonna come up a little, cause they got enough money, they can do that, or you're gonna come down a little, we're gonna meet in the middle, or you're gonna have to sell it for whatever, but the bottom line is like, that's a reality check, cause they don't wanna put it back on the market at that point. You're already through inspection, so they're probably starting to move. Most of them are gonna have at least a modicum of, of common sense at that point, where you can
So it's
hopefully get
probably a
something
better
done.
strategy
I
to
just,
wait.
I just wait.
I would.
Now, I mention it, I'll tell them, like,
Sure.
when we go under contract, I'll say, hey, remember when we did our CMA, and I showed you what the comps are? The market's hot, we've got multiple offers, this thing's going for 10 over asking, and the data does not reflect that, so be ready. We could get lucky, it could go through, but we may not, and we may be having a discussion.
Okay.
I just it's always setting their expectations.
I do a seller net sheet with what I'm gonna list it for, and then try to find out what their bottom line number is, and then go below their bottom line number and say, okay, this could be your reality.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're okay, I haven't signed it, I've
Yeah.
discussed it with them, because it's not just the price. You gotta look at, closing dates,
Right,
other
Yep.
terms,
yeah,
they're asking for, warranties or
Mm-hmm.
closing costs, so I try to figure all of that in too.
Yep.
So that
Yep.
they're not like totally shocked when they get that offer and then it appraises low.
no, you're right.
So how often does anyone get them or talk to the seller and get an appraisal before they list? Or can that even happen?
It doesn't matter, like, it's irrelevant to the deal that's coming in, like, cause the lender is gonna hire the appraiser, so you don't know who the lender is, cause you don't have a deal yet, right? So, in that regard, you're not saving a step. Now, if you have a super unique property, like, that's when the only time I would get an appraisal done ahead of time is if I've got a unique property. And I need to set these people, like, they think they have,
Go.
so they've got the gold floors, but it's not gonna be marketable, and it's not worth what they've got in it, it's nowhere near that, right? I need them to have a reality check, so I'm gonna tell them, hey, you gotta get an appraisal, here's the name of the person that knows these kinds of properties. That way, you can set a price that you think actually has a shot, otherwise,
And you said.
you're gonna have a big headache, right? So, but here's the thing, even if you get it appraised ahead of time, the lender, more than likely,
That appraiser's gonna be
95% of the time, it's gonna have to have a new appraisal. So, you're not saving a step, but you might be getting your seller right in their mind by doing it. Even if it's a tough property to, assess, for me, I'm gonna probably do it. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna have them do an appraisal, but if it's super unique, and and I can already tell, like, they think it's worth, I'm thinking, like, they think it's worth $4 million. Well, there's not many $4 million properties in our market, so I'm already going, right? I'm gonna get an appraisal. Cause they may be 2 million off. You see what I'm saying? Like, if they're that far off, they need to know it. And it can come from somebody else and not me, and then maybe I can keep the listing if they take some constructive criticism. Kendall, one more question, we gotta move on.
I totally lost it, it's good.
Good, no, I'm kidding. If you remember it, tell me. All right, if you guys have your laptops, let's go ahead and do this, okay? Let's get a laptop. And open up Flex. What's he want us to do? All right, so we're gonna do a map search. So go in to map search. Does everybody know how to get there? If you don't be shy, just say it, it's fine, you're fine. It's a safe place. So go into map search, okay? Make sure you're in residential, I guess, I don't know, I've got my own search that I made, so residential is where you wanna be, okay? But map search, everybody got that? Seriously, you didn't? Okay. Alright, so down here, you see the pin? Lower right hand corner.
Can you give us the address? Will, right? Yes. You called
Not
him
good with
Joe
names.
earlier today.
No, that was Joe. I was talking to my brother who isn't here.
Oh, okay, cause we was like, who's
Cousin?
Joe?
No. Alright, so Will, what's your Springview address?
4008 Mimosa View Drive.
Mimosa View Drive, DR, Louisville, KY 40299, okay? You guys got that? You got your
We're in map
pin?
search.
You dropped your pin?
What was it again?
What
I'm
is it?
sorry, what was the
It's
address?
4008 Mimosa, sounds good? View, DR.
Mimosa View.
Mimosa View, 2 words,
M-I-M.
Drive,
A-S-A.
DR.
OSA. View Drive.
Louisville, Kentucky 40299. So then you hit yes, and then you're gonna see
Click here.
use this location. You see use this location. If you have that click here thing, get rid of that.
Okay.
If you need to get that, there's another mine was doing that too. I had a bubble over top of where it is. Get rid of that, then just hit use this location. All right, then you get a little.
Where does it say that?
Ha ha. That's probably because you got that other bubble up here.
You just was it two different?
Did yours work?
No.
Did you do the pin?
Oh.
See, this one was.
I hit the pin, and then it's 4008
400.
Mimosa, M-I-M-O-S-A, and then View, and then DR. Who needs something? Sorry.
I did.
You got it there.
It is, okay.
Wait. Okay, are you in, okay,
That's it.
you're in that.
We're paying.
Click that and see if it'll get rid of that. Okay, go back. No? Okay, do radius.
I did the floors on the last street.
Click that.
That's it.
Using the map search will take you to the edit search. Okay, I don't know what they're doing. Let's do another pin. Do the pin again.
Just somebody
Now
that.
go back and do the same thing. Sorry, 4008. I'm sure there's a better way to do that, but I don't really know what to do.
What's the
Mimosa
second?
View Drive, DR,
40299.
402.
and Louisville, KY.
There's a sushi here, there's a here,
Everybody got that?
Map search.
and the map search.
Yes? We good?
No, mine's not.
Map search.
Okay, so now use this location. You see that?
And then
You
where
said
it has
still
radius
another
search,
without
we need
Huh?
that.
You said pen, not pen. The Kentucky pen.
Pin. Alright, so radius search, okay? Now this is Springview. Like I said earlier, if we wanted to, we could just search Springview. That'd be fine. We probably will do that in a minute. But I would do so radius search, mine pops up at 1 mile. That's what it says. I don't want 1 mile, I want 0.5, okay? I'm gonna put 0.5 in there, I'm gonna hit create radius, and then it's gonna turn everything blue. Right? You guys following it?
No.
No?
No.
Can't do it on the screen?
Hmm?
I searched the wrong, way. How do you do a map
I could, but then I won't be able to read that.
And
Okay, so here's what you do.
0.5 miles?
Get rid of that.
Huh?
Go here.
then he just said.
4008.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just looking at what he was.
Mimosa, M-I-M-O-S-A,
You wanna do it on
View.
your laptop?
Drive.
I see it right there.
Chris, can you share this presentation?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, awesome. Thank
And
you.
actually, I have a document that I'm gonna send you that I created about this stuff.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
You want us to be at 0.5?
0.5. 0.5. Nur,
Okay,
we got it?
use this location,
Yep.
okay.
And then radius search. And then get rid of that 1.0 and put 0.5 in there. And then create radius. Turns your screen blue, right? Okay. Everybody at that place? Okay. Now, you're gonna go. He says to zoom out and decide what you already know about the area. So, if you want to zoom out, this is a good exercise to do, okay? You're gonna zoom out a bit and look for stuff, right? What am I looking for? Positive and negative influences. That's what I'm looking for, right? Positive influences could be like this, the proximity to Jeffersontown Veterans Memorial Park. That's a good thing, I would think. For the most part, most people would like to be near a park, okay? Now this is like more if I didn't have a bunch of data within the neighborhood. I'd be looking at positives. Or if I didn't know the area, I'd be like, oh, okay, that's cool. Really, there's nothing much more that's scary or overly positive for where we sit, okay?
Middle school, positive, no?
What's that?
A school nearby?
Yeah, that could be. It could be, yeah, yeah. It very well could be, but I don't see railroad tracks. We're not on a real busy area. It's not a busy street. Okay, it's a neighborhood. So yeah, so it's relatively vanilla, so to speak. Like there's really nothing positive or negative. All right, so pay attention to major boundaries. We've probably got better examples than this. Okay, and he's used an example in St. Matthews for homes on Fairlawn Road between Willis Avenue and Lexington Road carry a higher property value than the same homes on Fairlawn Road between Lexington Road and Frankfurt Avenue. Okay, so it's an example. Okay, note any other physical or functional obsolescence. Whoa, that's a big word. In the area, power plant across the street, no access to highways, fall away backyard on one side of the street. Okay, any of that stuff. Okay, we're good. So we've got our area selected. Okay, now look, I don't know about yours, but mine defaults to just show actives. Is yours just showing actives?
Yeah.
You know how to look at that? You look on your search bar or your feature bar on the left and it says status, and all I've got is active, okay?
Yes.
All right, so, and then if I look up, it says view results, and how many do you have? You see that? Just look up, don't click anything, just look at the screen as it is. You see view results?
No.
It's on the top of your feature bar, on the left. Oh boy. I just wanna make sure you guys even have that.
View
If you
results.
don't, then,
Yeah, well,
so you've got view,
say active.
oh, it doesn't?
Mine doesn't either, it just says.
Oh, okay, so yours doesn't default to that, so come down to status, can you click on that? Click there.
Where's status?
Why is it not doing it? What's it say? Please enter city, state, or zip. What? Don't understand why that's doing that.
I think he just said active, that's what he
Get out of that. Okay, now see if you can do status. Why is it not letting me do that? I'm very confused. About that.
Okay,
Is anybody else having trouble with that?
Eight
Yes.
results?
Yes?
Yeah, 8.
Eight.
Okay, 8 results.
No status.
I was searching
I don't
for
know
the-
why you're not able to do that, Linus. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what's going on. You guys got 8 results?
No, I messed up. I was trying
You
to go
won't let you
back.
click status.
What is up with that?
Uh,
Okay, get out of that. You don't want that. Okay.
As soon as I exit the address though, I was able to.
But did you do your circle?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a half mile?
Oh, view results, there it is.
I had to exit out of the
We
address.
just want active?
Okay, well, you don't need to put the address in that bar. You need to put it in. I don't know why it would have put it in there. Let me see, Glennis, if yours is the same.
That's what happens when you put it in that
You might
bar,
have to
then
go
it
to
shows
one.
only one. When
Uh,
you put it here.
No, that's what it is. Click that X.
Yeah.
That's what Will did. So now you're able to go in there and get your status of active, okay? You guys got it? So 8 So here's the thing,
I'm about to see.
what I like about that results thing, that see results, is I like to look at that and I wanna get that to a workable number of properties that I can, go into more detail on, okay? And see which are my best comps, okay? So, if you're in active only, you've got a kind of a small number, so we're gonna do what? Remember, we're gonna pick active under contract, we're gonna pick pending and closed. Do you guys know how to do all that? So you click on status, and then you go active, and you have to click your command or your control, depending on what kind of computer you have, and select all those. You guys got that?
Oh, I always just go through them individually, you can actually do them all at the same time.
Yep, yep. I know, so
Yeah,
do you know how to do that? Okay, so you're gonna do,
Control.
yes, control, and then click active under contract. You've already got active, don't click that, now click active again, just by itself. Then come down to active under, scroll it down just a
Oh,
slight
I
bit.
see.
Oh, you can do that too, even better. Okay, cool, there you go.
Where is, I'm sorry, can you just see me quickly?
Yeah.
So, back at this step,
Mm-hmm.
not finding,
What is this?
not the,
Why is it doing, I don't understand what some of these are doing. Click that X where 147, whatever that is. Okay, you got your circle?
you know,
Yep. Okay, you've got, it's trying to figure out what the results are. What it's doing.
Mine's just spinning as well.
Come up,
How do you select more than
like
one?
go, see if you can go, sorry. See if you can
Look at
go,
the eyes.
no, that's messed up, what's going on? Why is that really showing? What kind of search is this? This is not. Let's do this. Sorry, quick search, okay, so residential, that's what we want. I don't know where that was that we were.
okay.
Now you can go, now I did quick search, but now you can go into May, okay, so they're both they're both the same.
Okay.
Sort of, I mean, they're not the same, but they sort of are. So then that's gonna give you this, you're just gonna come down here. And then you're gonna put in your address,
Oh.
4008,
Okay.
4008 Mimosa View. Everybody good?
Get there.
So we wanna pick active and active under contract?
Active under contract, pending and sold, or closed, okay?
Then what's the dates? Are you going back to like January or something?
We haven't gotten there yet, it's a
Oh,
cousin,
sorry.
just kidding.
Sorry, no, sorry.
If y'all don't know, Shamila is my cousin,
Yeah, we're
Ty is my sister, so let's keep it all in the Thomas family. Alright, so no, you're not gonna go back a year on closed if you can keep from it.
So just active right now?
No, go active under contract, pending and closed, alright? So so you're on status and you select all those, right? Everybody good?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go down here, you see what opens up below that, you've got pending date, which you're not gonna touch, just leave that alone. And then you got sold date, you see sold date?
Mhm.
Is that popping up below there? Okay, you're gonna go in there, now that goes back a year, mine goes back a year default, and I don't like that, okay? So I'm gonna go and it's May 23rd, alright? So I'm gonna go back. It kinda depends, I'm not gonna say it's a hard 6 months, it might be 6, 7 months, something like that. So I'm gonna go back to, let's say, October 1st of 2018 on my sold date from 10/1/2018 to 5/23, and mine says 2029, but it's really 2019. Okay, is everybody tracking?
Would you say again, you chose active, under contract,
Uh-huh.
pending and closed?
Yep,
All four?
that's right. Now here's what's interesting. When you're in a market that's brutal on sellers, brutal, okay, like we were in 2009, 10, that kind of place. Guess what else you would pull up here? Expireds. You know what's up. So Yeah, you would pick
Why?
out because you're gonna show them a stack of expireds. These are the people who tried and failed. You don't wanna be in this stack, right? Because they're not gonna believe, I'm telling you guys, when it gets hard, it's really hard. It's a hard gig.
So, what if you have somebody that is in that expired stack, and they're in there because they're stubborn and they don't listen to you, or anyone?
Yeah, you
know,
run.
You just say, I'm
Yeah.
done.
And then you mark it around them
Mm-hmm.
and make sure you try to get a listing or something.
Yeah.
The neighborhood.
Marcia's vengeful, man. I like it. I like it. No, I tell you though, I mean, you run your own business. So there are people that have huge businesses that they take any listing they can get, and they just want the sign, and it's something to market, and for them it's a win. It's not a win for that seller in my opinion, but sometimes the sellers they kind of do it to themselves, so you got to figure that out for yourself. And I mean, in a market where there aren't any listings, I'm probably going to go take a listing. Now, I'm going to be reasonable enough, and I've been doing it long enough where I think I can, for the most part, I don't run into a whole lot of pushback, and it's real easy in a seller's market, so much easier to walk into a listing appointment. Because you're not really talking, I mean, price, most of them are going to be surprised at how much their house is worth. I just sold one for $218. They thought it was worth $185 when I walked in the door. Because I think Zillow said it was worth $185. So right now, enjoy your time. Go get a bunch of listings, because right now it's a sweet time to be a listing agent. When it changes, that's when you got to make decisions on how do I want to spend my time, right? And you know, I will say this: Gene Rivers, who has a way bigger business than anybody in this room, and in this company, in our company, is in Florida. And when it shifted really heavily, there were agents who didn't want to do short sales. There were agents who were burned out because houses weren't selling. And he went and took all that inventory. He took every daggone listing he could take, because guess what? When you do that, and you actually service those people well, even if their house doesn't sell. So that's when you get into, well, if your house doesn't sell, we've tried it, we've given it the college try, and we can't get it sold, and I know you really want to move, what if we rented your house? Right, you give them an option that they hadn't really thought of. What if I rent your house for you? Can I help you with that? I kept clients. I kept a client because I couldn't sell their house. Normally that means you're out. Right? They don't want to hear from you anymore, right? But I said, hey, rental market's pretty strong. This will be a great rental. What do you think about renting it? He goes, yeah, that sounds good. This is hilarious. We rented it to 5 nuns. This is like 4 or 5 years ago. They're still there. The nuns are still there, paying every month. They're super sweet. There's no issues. He loves them to death. Guess what? Year after we rented it, he emails me and says, hey, wife and I are thinking about moving to Anchorage. And I'm going, all right, I sold him a $250,000 house like a few years before that, right? And they had moved from $105,000. So I sold their $105, they moved to a $250. I'm going, he's an attorney. I'm like, probably gonna buy a $500,000-$600,000 home. He sends me these houses that are close to $2 million, some of them.
Okay.
And I'm like,
Baby.
hey man, this is all well and good, but we do need a pre-approval letter even to go look at these. Like, we're not gonna even be able to go see them.
Right.
I hate to bring that up right away, but that's just the nature of the beast. I hope that's cool. Let's get that together and let's go look at some stuff. Sent it over in an hour and bought a $1.3 million home, right? So why did I tell you that story? Because
You kept a client.
because you got to decide what you're doing and how you want to function. And like in Gene Rivers' case, everybody was, I don't want to do short sales. I don't want a listing. They're hard to sell. Nothing's selling. Gene Rivers was like, I'll take the inventory, because his point is there's buyers out there for something, even in a bad market. And if I got more signs, I'll have more buyers, right? So I'm not saying don't do anything. Don't do a disservice to a seller ever by telling them that their house is worth more than it's worth. However, if you're very upfront with them and say, hey, market's tough right now, we all know this, it's everywhere. We're gonna price it here. I think it should be here, but I already told you that, so you now know that. But I'm happy to list it for you here, and we'll do everything we can, and we'll market the absolute junk out of it, the best that we can, right? Because if you're marketing, that's the other thing. If you're in a slow market, and you're out there hustling and doing, you know, you're out there marketing, just going nuts. How many more deals are you gonna get? Because everybody else is down in the dumps. That's all like hypothetical, that's all like mindset stuff.
Right.
But you have to make a decision on how you wanna run your business, and, you don't wanna be you wanna be truthful to a seller, but some of them are just gonna be like, I don't care, I just want you, can we just try it? And that's when you have to make a decision.
Try 2 weeks.
And in some cases, you should try it. Especially in an up market, you should try it, because it could sell. It's probably worth a little more than you are
I just
thinking.
have one quick question.
Mm-hmm.
So you know how you said you told your buyers the 1.3 million to rent their house? What happened if their finances were good because he was an attorney or whatever?
Well, this was a flip house, so they were already living in one house.
Okay.
This
so
was a
never
flip
mind.
house.
Okay.
We couldn't sell it.
Right.
I just gave him an option. You're a problem solver,
Right.
right? What we don't want is to say, I can't solve your problem, we should just take it off the market, and I'm sorry, I just didn't get the job done. Because then you're never gonna get their business again, right? But if you're upfront with them and you give them options, and you say, hey, now, you have to be careful, we're not a property management company, so there's very little that I can do for him when I'm listing his home for rent, very little. But I could do that little bit, that being, put it on the MLS, get leads, send him the leads, he shows the property. I have investment property, so we have a subscription to a company that will run background checks and all that jazz. I gave him some of the stuff that I use, and I said, here, use these for your applications. You give me the application and the money to run the application, I'll run the applications, and I'm literally just sending him info. He's making the decision.
So you can do that, cause I've got.
I didn't ask, but yeah,
Cause I've
yeah.
got the capability, well, I got the capability of doing that too.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, okay, so yeah, good question though, like what do we do, how do we, should we take it, should we not, what if they're crazy? You gotta figure out how you wanna run, you gotta figure out your own business. When you get to a point where you can be more selective, you're gonna be telling those people no. I don't need crazy in my life, right? I got 6 good clients right now or something.
What if you can offer him to sell his house for contract of deed instead
yeah.
of rental?
Yeah. You can.
Can? Okay.
Yeah, just get Harry involved or somebody. You don't want to be in that business if you can keep from it.
Okay, why?
I'm just telling you, and he probably doesn't want to be in that business either.
Okay.
Now I will say that guy probably does want to be. Anyway, but that's a separate deal. But contract for deed is one thing. Like if you're a seller, contract for deed is the better position to be in. Sort of well, it depends. It kind of depends. I shouldn't say it. It's probably better. It's probably equal, a little bit more equal. I think rent to own is a little bit more. Like that can be very predatory from a seller point of view. I know people who will do rent to own all day long, knowing that people will fail, and they want them to fail.
And I don't
Okay,
like
so-
that.
I don't either, and I
So
don't want to be in
rent-
that business.
Rent to own is different than contract of deed?
Yep,
How is it
that's a
different?
separate discussion.
How is it different?
Rent to own is you are the seller, or you're the owner of the property, and you do not give up you don't give up any interest in the property, okay? And they are renting to own your property, so you're gonna set them up on some sort of schedule, they're gonna pay you X amount of rent for however long, and then at the end of 2 years or whatever it is, they're gonna hopefully be able to qualify for a loan.
And if they don't,
80% of the time.
They'll
they
continue.
So you're getting an upfront fee for a lease option or whatever, you're getting an option fee up front, a substantial. So a lot of people that might have $5,000 or $10,000, but don't have any credit or have bad credit, will jump at that. They'll say, hey, I'll give you 10 grand, and then, I'm sure it'll all work out in 2 years, right?
oh, okay, well, I thought
But if
that
it
rent to
doesn't,
own was the
if it
same.
doesn't, then the seller or the person who owns the property has the option to say, well then keep renting from me, or, you know, or hey, you gotta pay another option fee. I mean, it's just, it can be very,
Oh,
to me,
yeah.
it can be very predatory.
Can they
So-
get them out?
Huh?
Can they get them out?
There's always a way out, yeah,
Mhm.
in leases, yeah. I mean, it should be written that way. If you use a professional lease, there should be a way for both parties to get out of anything,
Okay.
to get out of the relationship.
Well, that's nice to know. I thought
But a
rental
contract for
was the
deed
same.
is where you're actually selling them,
Yes.
the person who's renting
Mhm.
actually have an ownership interest as soon as the documents are signed, before they actually do traditional financing.
Mhm.
So you're giving them a position on the property, and then if you are, you have to be careful of this, because you're not supposed to practice as though you're a bank. But I think you can do it used to be you could do like 1 or 2 or however many, maybe 4 a year like this, where the lending institutions wouldn't, or the lending regulatory people wouldn't look at you as a bank if you were doing that, as where you're carrying financing.
Mhm.
But now they've kind of tightened up on that, so you have to be careful with that.
Okay.
Just steer clear of it if you can.
So in a contract of deed, if the option
Plus, you're not
is-
gonna get paid. You're not gonna get paid until it closes. Why would you wanna be in that business?
Yeah, true, I mean, but, you know, to give, sellers and buyers an option. But
Yep.
if the option is not exercised on the contract of deed, then they lose the option fee. But what about the property that already transferred to the buyer's name?
You have to foreclose.
Okay, who would foreclose?
The seller.
The seller would foreclose on the buyer that hadn't paid yet?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep, it's a foreclosure. So it's the difference between a foreclosure and an eviction, right?
Yeah.
If somebody wants, can
We're way off topic, ladies
Well,
and
they
gentlemen.
email
We got
I've got-
15 minutes.
I've got an article that Harry wrote, that when someone mentions lease option, all of that stuff, I personally do not do them, and I will not do them.
Mm-hmm,
I send them that article that Harry wrote,
mm-hmm.
that's the end of the conversation.
Yeah, I talked someone out of that the other day.
I will put it this
I
way.
just sent them that article.
I will put it this way. For both of those scenarios, okay, you're entering into a sophisticated real estate transaction that we don't even know very well. We're the professionals, okay? Guess who's gonna come out on the right end of that deal? Like, way more win for the seller every time, okay? So I think you have to assess whether or not you wanna be in that or not. And I'm not, there are people that do it, they think it's fine, it's all written out, it's all legit, it's all yada yada, but I'm kinda like,
I think they take advantage.
if I have a client who wants to rent to own, first question is, I'm like, why? Why do you want that?
Uh-huh.
Well, I heard that's a good way. Why? Who told you that? You have no idea what you're talking about. Like, help them. Tell them, no, you don't want that.
Yeah.
Let's
yeah,
get
that's what I
you,
did
let's
the
get
other
you
day.
in credit repair. That's the
Mhm.
issue, right?
Yeah.
Marcia?
I do credit.
You do?
All right,
I don't need to
Ladies and
read
gentlemen,
info. I keep
Okay.
reading.
we gotta get on this. All right, so
Alright.
your sold date, 10/1/2018. Okay? Now look, you guys got 66 results?
67. Yeah.
67, all right?
Yeah.
Fair enough. So that's too many, right? So what am I gonna do here?
Yeah.
Well, I could go and mess with my sold date, which I'm not gonna do that yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit, do you all have property subtype in your menu? Do you? So we are a single family residence. I'm gonna click that, see if I'm gonna kick out any condos. And I didn't kick out any condos. So I'm looking for that number 66 to go down. I want it to go drastically down, right? I'm now going to go to, Will, how big is that house? Above ground?
1430 square feet.
Above ground?
Mhm.
Okay, so now I'm gonna go, you guys have above grade finished? Okay, so above grade finished, I'm gonna go 1,300 minimum, and I'm gonna go, how big is it? Sorry, 14?
1430.
I'm gonna go 16,
Dang.
which is too much, but look, my results dropped down to 32, so I'm getting better. Is it a first floor master?
Mm-hmm.
Alright.
Where do you find that at?
That field?
Yeah, do you all have that field?
Atfield,
That's what I
yeah,
did.
Do you have it?
yes.
Okay. So first floor master, then you're just gonna say yes. Is yours a 1 story or 1.5? It's 2?
I don't know, what's the difference between,
Well, it doesn't matter. Bottom line is there's 2 floors and it does have a basement or doesn't?
does,
Okay, so
unfinished?
out of all that information, I'm gonna go, do you all have basement as a field?
Yes.
Good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say partially finished or walkout finished or walkout unfinished or walkout part finished or unfinished or outside entry or finished.
What about not none?
I would not put none because we have a basement.
Not none.
Oh, not none, even better. You could do that. All right? Yeah, and how do you change the not? You click
Click on the or.
on the or and you can change whatever. Okay, you guys see that?
So like the first floor master, you
First
get
floor
what?
master.
What am I looking for?
Huh?
First floor master, and then what am I looking for?
Go to basement. Do you have basement as a field?
Yes.
Sorry, are we going too fast?
No, we're
No,
good.
he was
We're
helping me
good.
find first.
There's
floor
no
master.
first floor master in this search.
You don't have, okay, so on yours it doesn't have it?
General description.
So here's the beauty of that. You can come down and add a field. You see?
Trying.
Okay, cool.
So where is it?
Oh goodness, good luck. Look for it. You're gonna have
No,
to
you
kind
have to-
of scan through.
So for first floor master, you add MB?
So just put unfinished on the basement?
I like what
Lucy.
yes, thank you. Gosh, sorry. I like what Lucy said, which so you see how it says or?
Mm-hmm.
If you click on or by none, see where none is? Click on or, and then say not none. Nice double negative. Not none. Not none basement. Which means we don't want the option of it not having a basement. We want everything that has at least some sort of basement,
That's
right?
helpful, that's good.
Yep. So there you go. All right, so I'm all the way down to 11. All right, so click 11 is a great number for me to scan through and see what I like. Now, what I didn't tell you guys is, normally what I would do is I would have this pulled up. Like if I'm looking at, let's say your house isn't listed yet, yours, and I have an address, and maybe I have an old MLS listing. That's ideal. So I go in, I'll search that address, right? And I'll find the old MLS listing, and now I've got some data to look at. Now I know a little bit about the house, okay? And assuming, now, the best thing to do, in an area where you feel like there could be an addition, or they may have updated it a lot, or whatever, best thing to do is talk to the seller, right? You talk to that seller, I'm coming out to your house on Thursday, I just want to ask you a couple questions about your home. You've been there since 2015. Have you put on any additions? Nope, no additions. Okay, cool. Is there anything major that you've done remodeling wise? Trust me, they love talking. Do they like talking about their remodel? Yes, they love talking about what they've done. They're going to tell you everything, probably too much. All right, so you're going to make some notes, and you're going to note anything that's super major, like, oh, we did a whole kitchen remodel. Oh, cool, awesome. Well, tell me about that. What'd you do? New cabinets, granite, whatever, right? Just make some notes, that way you've got a better idea before you even go out. That way you can whittle your comps down even more, okay? All right, so I got 11, I'm gonna look at my 11. So I'm gonna click on view results. And I'm looking here, I got 3913 Pin Oak View. It's pretty similar in size, 1480, and is an unfinished basement. I love this one, this is a great comp. 3-bed, 2 full bath. Okay, oh, what I was gonna say though is, if you have an old listing, you're gonna have that window, you could have that open, right? Where is your listing? Will?
It's not on yet, it's not live until.
Oh, it's not, okay, so even better. All right, so, we're kinda too late, but what I would've done is, start off, find the old listing, and then you can open that as a window. It's a separate window. All right, that way you've got that sitting there and you can kind of refer back and forth. That way you kind of know what it looks like. We don't really know, I'm not really worried about it because this is all hypothetical, but what I would do is, I'm looking at Pin Oak and I'm going, that's a great comp, I want that one. So I click I click the checkbox, right? Now the next one for me is the one on Taylorsville Road. Now, knowing that my house looks a lot more like Pin Oak and is more the age of Pin Oak, is Taylorsville Road even a comp? No. Thank you. Good. Yes. Who's asking?
You can still open a new window if you want.
Okay. How do you do that?
So you go to the search bar, to the main search bar on the top of the page,
Mm-hmm.
and you start typing 4008 Mimosa, and it should show you a drop down with.
Oh, new tab. Yeah, you're
New tab.
awesome, man. Lucy, rock and roll. All right. So now I've got the pick. Now I kind of know what it looks like, right? You guys see that?
Yeah, what did she say again?
So if you go, you know the top bar there where it says enter an address, zip, I'm sorry, city, zip, MLS number, blah, blah, blah. You see that? Here. Right here. Oh, yours says Downing Way. Get rid of that Downing Way. Now say 4008,
Okay.
and then see what pops up.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna hit new tab.
I feel like everybody knows.
Lucy saving the day. Love it. So, all right. So now I've at least got something to go on here, right? And if you're now, it doesn't have any old pictures, unfortunately. Some of them will have old pictures, so you can kind of get a better feel for what's going on too. This one doesn't. So at least I know what it looks like. Now that I see it, I don't love Pin Oak View as a comp. I don't love it. I don't think it looks that similar. But size-wise, first floor master, yada yada, unfinished basement, pretty similar. Now yours has one car garage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has a 2. So our comp has a 2. And it's 197.9, it's active under contract, and it's been 45 days on market. Okay, those are the things I'm looking at, right? And I'm gonna look at the pics and make sure it's not, supernaturally gifted or anything. It's very average, okay? This is very run-of-the-mill for Springview, okay? The kitchen's maybe a little bit updated. I don't know if that's a new countertop or something, but it's not. This is all nothing's unbelievable, okay? Makes sense? But that's what I'm looking for. I want to know, is there something really amazing going on with this house that would make me not pick it if I get in mine and it's just average? Well, this one's very average, okay? All right, then Truman Way, that's not a comp. We know that, right? But that isn't, see, so this neighborhood Vantage Point, that's a neighborhood that adjoins Springview. So this is the discussion we had at the beginning. Like, listing agent wants the appraiser to go outside of the neighborhood to get this comp, and it doesn't look anything like my house, and it's got brick on it, and it's all that. So, anywho, Bell Tower, not a comp. Saint Rene, not a comp. West Wago, not a comp. Fairview Court, now that looks a little bit more like my house. Okay. All right, and it sold for a lot too, which is sweet. So it's 222.7. Why on earth did that sell for so much? That's what I'm asking, right? So I'm going to look at the pics.
It has a finished basement.
Yep, and it's got some updates. The kitchen is a little bit funky in a cool way. Looks like some hardwood floor. Man, they had some bold taste.
I know.
Right?
Look at the bathroom.
Kind of surprising that that went that high.
Steps.
Somebody liked it.
But they got the right buyer, and it only took 2 days on the market. Right? But it's a 1-car garage. It really checks all the boxes, except it's got that 518 square feet in basement. And it's a 4-bed, which is, we're not a 4-bed, right?
No.
Right.
How is that a 4-bed? It says it's got,
Basement is finished too.
it says it's got 3 bedrooms on the 2nd floor.
Which one did you say you liked as the best comp? As the best match?
Well, 10503 Fairview is the one I'm looking at. I'm not saying it's the best, but it is.
I only see 2
It's
bedrooms.
4 beds, so that one I may kick that out because of that, and then I may head over here to Pineview.
I hit Pineview.
Pineview's 3-bed, 2 full bath, similar square footage on the first floor or first 2 floors, and then you've got a little finish in the basement. So that's got a big yard.
Backyard, yeah.
It's got a big yard, which is rare over in that neighborhood. The interior is a little above average. It's been updated to some degree. Okay. Now, here's the other thing, but there's no pictures of the basement, which is odd, since it's finished. Which is unfortunate, because what I wanna know is kind of what kind of quality is the basement, right? Like, what kind of finish is it? Is it a good finish? Is it a barely finish? What is it? Alright, that's pretty much it. That's amazing. So that's it for Springview, okay? Make sense? Alright, so here's the thing. You got 197.9, and then you got 222 and 211.
So did you pick two houses or one? Cause I found two.
I picked 3.
Oh, which ones? 'Cause I got.
I went ahead and picked the Pineview one. Now, really, in all, here's the thing. If I were, okay, we just did that so that you could learn how to do a radius search.
Then we
Right.
probably need to be in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I would have just hit Springview, and if I have to like widen a few little parameters to get 1 or 2, I'm never gonna not have enough comps in Springview. I'm always gonna have comps, okay? So, these might not be the very best that I would pick, but I just, you guys needed to see how to do a radius, okay? Now you know how to do a radius. That's as far as we got today. I don't know what else to tell you, sorry.
We appreciate you.
Where else, what else did we not see? Look at this, the zip code search, neighborhood search. Polygon is awesome. Gets into a lot of fun stuff there. Selecting comps.
So once we figure out which ones, then what do you do? You know what I mean?
Once you figure out which ones,
Yeah.
it depends on what I'm looking at.
Cause like these last 3, where would you go to now just to see?
Well, I would make sure I've selected them, and then I've got my 3 selected, right? You see that up there next to results?
Well, I got 2, but yeah.
Okay, so I've got 3. I'm gonna save those. Okay, now really what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back out of this whole thing, and I'm gonna go back in, I'm gonna do a neighborhood search for Springview. That's really what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Okay, but we don't have time for that. So
You save them.
I would save them. So you go up to save, and it says save selected as. If you save selected as, you can call them a collection. So now you have a listing collection. I would call that, 4008 Mimosa View comps. Right? Now I've got those saved, and then I can go back in and mess around and see what I want to do. If you, where you get real nerdy is when you can go in and do like a manual, like a manual CMA, and you can do like adjustments, so you can add value for certain things, take away value for things.
Yeah.
We might do that in Springview at this point, because there's enough of them that have been updated. That really comes into play like when you have a bunch of variances. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So how do I decide if it's like average?
Okay. Alright, so I'm not gonna say those. I'm just gonna take these 3, okay? And now I'm just gonna hit CMA. See this? Did you do that?
No.
Okay. Okay, now it says what? Use all results, use select, it doesn't really matter. Mine are selected. So use all results, okay? Well, now I've got these 3 options. If I want, I can do this, which, let me see here. Okay, this one allows you to make adjustments.
Thank you.
Okay, you bet.
Oh,
This
okay,
one
fine.
is